see that already, or should I?
Yep.
Yeah. So as you zoom in on these locations, it's just a simple heat map. Oh my God, this is awful. I'm gonna stand right here. No, I'm not, because it's not connected.
You wanna come forward even more? You got plenty of rope if you want to.
No, but this is the general gist of it. So I broke them out by locations that are in blue have access of some sort to the water. There's no unobstructed, there's a path to the shoreline. And these red ones were identified one way or another as potentially providing some kind of public access, but there really is no unimpeded access. It's either overgrown, vegetated, or I didn't know any information, so I just labeled it that way. But using this information, I put together a quick and dirty dashboard. That is only as good as the data that you put in it, right? And so the information I have is kind of gobbledygook, but it serves the purpose is that we can sort it and look at things in different ways, however way we want to show it. And as you zoom in, the statistics change based on what's shown in the view and all of that. Now, I have no idea where you guys are with shoreline access and whatnot. Mike and I had happened to talk about it. He was like, he thinks this would be a great idea to show you guys that we have this capability. Why not use it? And if you guys want to, or if somebody wants to take the spreadsheet that I showed you and populate it, or think about what you would, if this is beneficial, what you would want it to show, what kind of data you want it to show. So like if you click on any one of these features, table pops up with the information in the table. So you can completely customize this to however way you guys or the town wants it to look. But there does need to be some vetting, right, of what do you really want to put out there as access locations. And we all know that it's a hot topic, and some people like to dissect things a little bit. So we kind of have to be cognizant of that. I don't know where you guys are with what you wanted to where it's going with the harbor management plan. Like I said, I was just kind of playing around. I showed Mike, talked about it. Thought it might be a good idea to show you guys and see if it's something that you might be interested in or helping develop.
This is kind of like a long-term goal that we've had for a while with the planning department and myself to develop a public interface for people to access all the data for South Kingstown rights away to the water. So Jay was awesome enough to start to embark down this to create the program, and so it's entirely up to you folks how you want to handle it. But like to Jay's point, there's some places that we probably don't want to encourage access because while it's public, it's not developed to get to the water, right? Or it may need some improvements.
All of us B, for example.
All of us B, right? That would be another example, right? Where it's unverified. We don't have the data to determine one way or the other, but it's a possibility. And now that we're getting funding through the town council to do these survey and monumentation and eventually title work, we can start to move these to the verified sites.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that the town has done such a good job historically of getting this information and putting it together, and that we kind of move with the technology and provide that data, in a digestible way and an easily accessible way. And the other thing Jay showed is he can even install like a "You Are Here" when you're on your phone.
Yeah.
Where you just click the thing and it zooms in right to where you are, and then you can see based on where you are. So it's not just like a desktop kind of clunky system. It can be useful to the person out in the field.
Yeah, so you could take this up with using your phone out in the field and hit the button, and it'll show you a location like that blue dot is on the phone. Also, I don't have it configured for mobile yet. It'll show up, but it'll be all kind of gobbledygook. But yeah, I think it's even a good tool for you guys in discussion purposes of going out and getting, just if you happen to be on the street and you say, hey, let me go check it out, and you look at it and you're like, oh no, this is, or it's in the wrong spot. A lot of these, some of the most recent ones that were picked up as part of the most recent plan, you know, some publicly owned properties generally were called out on it, but there's no access whatsoever. And I personally don't think any of those should be considered make it even on a list just because they're owned by a public entity.
Would you anticipate this would be a layer on the GIS, or this would be on the town website at some point ultimately?
This is its own webpage provided through our GIS platform that we use. So yeah, this link would be on the webpage and would be available for the public to use. As an administrator, I have the ability of shutting it down, you know, taking it offline, shutting it off, doing whatever we had to do.
I took that Excel sheet from Brian of the 2010 list and did a lot of updating it to get it to the one that went into the 2020 one, the one that's under review.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be willing to help you with the spreadsheet work. Like I updated the section in the harbor management plan and then added lines in the spreadsheet. We had like a couple additions on list A, for example, which it looks like made it. But if it helps like understanding the versioning of how we went from the 2010 spreadsheet to the other one, like how did that happen?
Yeah.
It was that game of telephone between me and Brian. So
Gotcha.
I'm willing to help with that. And then my preference, I think this is a great idea. My preference would just be have all this stuff there match what's in the harbor management plan for attributes, and maybe if there's additional ones, like I guess we just want to. It kind of is like gets unwieldy if we have like another set of stuff that we try to keep active versus just whatever's in the harbor management plan on the thing.
Well, I would suggest that, I've been doing this for a while, I would suggest that if you guys were to use this as your basis to really take a look and saying, what are we trying to show? How do we want to characterize this stuff, and what's the intent of it? Use this going forward and clean everything up so that it's the way that you guys want it to be. Because what I think you're going to find, what I found is going from the 2010 to the most recent one, you're looking at it from two different ways with like not enough information about both. So when you go back and you look at all of it, you really don't know how to digest what's in it. So it's almost like, in my opinion, to be like almost a good time to be like just sitting at home, going through and picking those up and going, nope, let me change the spreadsheet, take that off, you know. And all of those fields are completely customizable. So if you can imagine taking the spreadsheet, wiping out all the columns and just starting new, we can take that and put that up here.
So you could have almost your various layers as much as you want to make. I mean, everything's available to the public as a public document, but that would seem reasonable to somebody who wants to go to the shore, right? Like maybe they don't need to know the history of the platting of it and things like that, right? Like it could just have the link to the harbor management plan, but maybe the box, and maybe you do want that. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I think, right, that's kind of what you're looking for. Like, you know, the basic things like parking, what type of activities can occur there, right? Things of that, if it's a boat ramp, what kind of condition is it in, what type of boats can be launched there, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm just here to bring the technology to you guys, and if somebody wants to go through the spreadsheet and you guys formalize it, and I can make that happen. I think a good approach is to kind of use this and to think about what's the narrative, what are we really trying to do, who's our audience, what's the audience looking for? They want to know, like, where can they launch a kayak, or where can I go fishing with my kid, or, you know, things like that. Not necessarily the book and page number of the designation.
And you also could look to the one that CRMC had kind of started with an intern or something, like they got it off the ground, but then I don't know how robust it went from there, but you know, there may be something in that system that sparks something, you know, for you guys to think about too. Or I always like to look at other states and try and beg, borrow, and steal from everybody else rather than reinvent the wheel. So
if you have good data, if we have good data, then doing graphics, like I can do what they call a story map using GIS and bring pictures and all that stuff in. We could do that too if there's an area that you wanna highlight with the council or with somebody that you wanna go through, show pictures or documents or things like that to help justify something. It's great because we already had halfway decent data, and me just messing around picking up with it, I was able to do this probably in less than a day. I had some free time and was just messing around.
Well, we've already got our harbor management plan update, its data packages in there. We're not gonna touch that, because that was submitted, that's cast in their concrete at DEM and CRMC. So if this is just a public marketing event, it's a whole different tasking than we've already completed with the harbor management plan.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, like, simplicity would just have it match all of, a subset of the stuff about all the points.
Yeah,
that are
even,
there.
the things I'm concerned about is, we deleted all the, non-town of South Kingstown from it. From the harbor management plan, responsibility on us type thing.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I don't think it was deleted, I think it's called out.
We separated it out.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Right, because we're not.
But it's still-
taking responsibility for it.
Right. Like, in there, it would say ownership of the state or something.
Right, so, in something like this, I don't wanna have us speaking to a state-owned property or a federally owned property.
Yeah, maybe it's just a dot that says state-owned.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you're speaking to it, you're just identifying, right? Like East Matunic
No.
State Beach.
Period.
Right, yeah, like.
Right,
And
now
then-
it can do this, or you can do that, you can
Right.
play with this, but not with that.
Which is why sort of those fields that we had about each of the places, some like small amount of that data on each of these
Right,
places.
only if it exists in the harbor management plan.
That's what I'm
With
getting at.
no differentiating information, one in the plan, one there, because I can see the crap coming back at us of this thing. You said it over here like this, and over here it's like that. And I don't think we wanna go there.
I don't think we are, right? I mean,
Well, I get a little concerned, we're gonna start putting fluff here to go ahead and maybe more of a marketing thing, you know, like a. tourist
I think
thing.
there's a difference between marketing and clear communications.
That's
Because
true.
that's what is gonna make this successful, right? Is very
Well-
clear, when you talk about list B, and the public sees list B and thinks, well, why isn't, why can't I access that? And
Right.
being very clear about why they're unverified and why.
Why put it up there at all?
Well, that's why I would say I would focus on list A, and that's what you would say,
Right.
don't
There'll
put
be a
list
little
B
note
up
up there
there.
that says, here's list A.
But you're gonna have to have that clarification about why there's a list B in the HMP, and you're not including list B on
These
this
are-
public
These are
facing.
not currently
Yeah,
accessible to the public.
And this was asked for by the town council when you and I presented to the town council a year ago. I mean, they asked for exactly this to be done.
And they can
So-
have it, so long as
Yeah.
it matches the harbor management
Yep.
plan.
That'd be my preference.
And, again, you've seen this, like, DEM will have, like, with freshwater ponds, parking, stock, stuff like that. You're not gonna do anything like that. It's gonna
No.
be parking, and that's about it,
Mhm.
right?
On this, on that dashboard that I just showed, I just really have these broken out into two categories, whether or not they had parking, whether or not they had access. And I had to make generalizations on some of them because the information just wasn't good, but that's also something you need to look at as while we're talking about the actual legitimate coastal access points, we could still reference other locations just as non-shoreline access points, not like the state-owned properties, things that are out of the control of the town. So anyway, anyway, I can, what I'll do is I can forward these links around to you guys, and if you go on the, this map one, down here at the bottom, if you click this shoreline access data, that you can download the Excel spreadsheet that I have to base off of that. So if it was something you guys really want to do, just download that spreadsheet and tinker it, and you can send it back to me, I'll relink the data and you can relook at it. Very welcome.
Okay.
No problem. Carol's a little bit more old school than I am with the GIS stuff, so I've been trying to do some new things, and she's retiring this summer, so I'm kind of like, oh, play around. Nice meeting you guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise, thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Minutes?
I don't know if you guys have further discussion, or you ready to move on, or
I mean, I
your
think,
tasking on how you're gonna move forward with it?
yeah, I mean, if we take a look at the spreadsheet that he was working off of and just reconcile it against what's in the latest, the 2020 version of the harbor management plan, and make sure that that matches, I think that's an immediate first step.
And then what fields you would like to populate on this?
Yep. And just, you know, again, I wouldn't wanna include, you know, list B data on there to include that clear. I'm just be focused on list A, be very clear, and have some sort of messaging on the map that says, you know, there's some unverified points that aren't included on this map. You know, see the harbor management plan for a full list of, you know, points, access points.
So one of the good points that Jay brought up was like Hillcrest is a good example, right? That's a list A. You go to the end of the road, you can't get to the water.
Yeah.
So that's verified public access, but it's not accessible. So probably there should be some way to delineate that if you're gonna dump all of list A in there, that the person doesn't pack up the car with the kids to go to Hillcrest to spend a day on the Saugatucket River and they can't get to it, right? So we probably should look at that as well.
And as a general member of the public, if I were to say, well, if it is a public access point, at what point is the town gonna give me a path to get to the water?
Right, right.
And I think that, again, that goes into this whole thought process, okay, if we're gonna segregate those out, we're gonna need to have a little explanation as to how we why we put these in certain containers and others in others.
Yeah. So, you know, if you guys wanna take that home and think about it, you know, over the next months or so many months or whatever, and revisit, or however you guys wanna proceed. But I think that's kinda what Jay, you know, is looking for, is give me the data you want in here, and then.
Well, to be clear, I'm just bringing it to you guys saying, hey, we have this capability, we have this technology and capability. I put it together to show you an example, and my thought process was, you guys put the data together. As long as the data is good, and you know how you want it to look or what you want to display, I can make that happen. So I'm certainly not trying to encourage you guys to do one thing or another. I'm just saying, hey, we can do this if you guys want to try it.
Flag the berry ones that you did, that's bad.
Yeah, so,
I'll forward those links to you tomorrow, and you can distribute them to.
okay, great. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good night, guys.
Good night. You guys good with that topic? Move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'm all set with it.
Yes?
Yeah. We're clear on.
Good idea.
Yeah, we can just start to work off of what he sends and.
Yeah, he'll forward me the email that he, and then I'll forward it
And
to
we
you
probably
guys.
want the spreadsheet that Brian used to make the harbor management report, 'cause that had whatever attributes we did.
Yeah, I'll check with him. That link, the FTP link should still be valid if you didn't download it to access it, because it's too big of a file to email.
And then stuff changed between the FTP and what ended up in.
He's updated it as it's gone, just like the
Okay,
DEM
and
comments and stuff like that.
There's an Excel spreadsheet of all of the rights-of-way,
Mhm.
like a spread. And when we edited the harbor management plan, we actually added 2 A spots for an example, so
Yep,
then.
yeah, like the end of
Would've
Twin
had to-
Peninsula.
Yeah, and the one at like the end of Matunic Beach Road where it goes to South Kingston Town Beach and
Mhm.
Matunic Seawall.
Yep,
And he had it on the map, so somewhere someone updated it, but.
yeah,
making
Brian,
sure we-
anything that you submitted, Brian updated.
Yeah, making sure we have the latest one of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Great, yeah, and to Sam's point, that was something you guys discussed in the work session, I
Yeah,
think, where
that's-
they actually asked
they asked
if that was something that could be done,
Nice.
so, here we go.
Yep.
Minutes? Maybe we'll approve our previous meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes from April 3rd.
Second.
Nate? All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Just, if you didn't, I assume you did, but just confirm the verbiage of the riparian lease that we talked about last meeting. Just confirm that, cause it was kind of a little bouncing around with different people, and I tried to bring that into a succinct few sentences, so just make sure that that's reflected accurately. That was under the correspondence and public comment section.
I'm good with that language.
That's good, because it was yours.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I hope I'm good with it.
Like I said, there was kind of a few different
Yeah,
details
no,
that I tried to bring together for you
Oh,
guys, so.
Good work.
Okay?
All set?
Yeah.
Any business?
Correspondence.
Okay. You want to say anything about that?
Do you want to do correspondence?
We had A, right? Separate. Oh, I missed it. Brought it from the meeting minutes to the agenda. Got it. Access
This little, or this large bike path idea, one of the new council counselors has written this letter about trying to connect the town with bike paths. I thought about that, we had thought about how to get Marina Park in the mix, and that's my only priority, would just be like getting his ear to say, hey, Marina Park, we've thought about connecting Marina Park to the downtown, how would that fit in? That's kind of my only objective there. Who knows, they have to do this in tiny parts over a lot of period of time, and maybe that Marina Park thing could be a first, or one of the early connectors.
I think it's an easy lift for sure, and easy. In the scheme of this proposed plan, which is connecting Wakefield and Peacedale to Matunic via bike path. So certainly there's some land considerations, I would imagine, because I don't know that besides the highway, I don't know that you have a straight shot of public land to get to Matunic. But to Nate's point, we've already been discussing connecting Marina Park to Town Farm Park so that it's walkable, bikeable to Wakefield without having to deal with the entrance and exit ramps from the highway. And I believe that idea is even called out as utilizing Pond Street to get under the highway, because that's one of the biggest obstacles to this whole project is how do you get people safely to the other side of the highway. So
How does that work in obviously it's just a dream that one person is throwing out there. Do we someday down the road we write a letter to town council? Is this one of those items where we write a letter that explains, hey, this is a great idea, we had thought about this in a smaller way, we'd like to be involved?
sure, you could. It was referred to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. That was in a public town council meeting. Their meetings are public. The idea is public. So you could do whatever. You could endorse the whole idea. You can endorse components of it. You could say, hey, we already were discussing this idea, which may fit into this broader plan. And also, while the dollars aren't in the account, in the capital improvement plan, that not this year, but next year, if it holds true, they're gonna begin funding the master plan for Marina Park and Town Farm Park. It's an out year, right? So that until the dollars actually transfer into an account, it's just a plan, it's not funded. But certainly this, lets the town council know, we're looking at a broader master plan, but a component of that plan is just here what you're discussing, so rather than operating in individual groups or silos, hey, we're looking to do this, you're looking to do that, there's some components that meet in the middle, and, you folks can do what you want with that. You can just kind of, let it ride and see where everything goes. You can communicate to the council that, you hope to work, collaborate in this process because you have this idea, or you support the idea because it's connecting the coastal area of town to downtown, whatever, you can do whatever you want. It's really entirely up to you guys. There's no action required other than a public, right now we're just providing to all you as information if you weren't already aware.
I think the only thing I'd like to say about this is we got enough to chew on with Marina Park, and the other neighborhoods of West Kingston, let somebody else deal with that.
Well, just know that the idea that you folks are discussing is discussed in this plan as well, so.
Yeah, because there's nothing for us outside of Marina Park.
I mean, the rest of the path does go and say it's gonna connect beach locations, so like, in the grand scheme, maybe, like, that's way out years, like, oh, we're gonna try to connect down Route 1 to Town Beach.
Right.
Not that we have to do anything, well, this committee doesn't do anything with that, because it doesn't necessarily fall in like stuff that we really get involved in, but we could say, at least say we're interested in coordinating the Marina Park when the master plan comes together. And otherwise, I personally support trying to connect the coastal access in different ways, but that's just personal.
Yeah, so certainly if you folks are all in agreement, you could communicate those points, or some of those points, or none of those points.
And we don't have to do it now, we can do it.
Yeah, that's also correct, yep. I mean, it is, freshly hatched, so, people know about it, right? In 6 months, they may have forgotten about it.
So beyond this memo, has there been anything else done? Like, you said it was brought up at the last council meeting on Monday.
The one before that, I think, it was the one before that, and it was referred to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So it's been delegated to somebody to explore further. So I guess you could also, in that vein, communicate to both of them, right? Hey, we're looking for capital funding in the future to connect Marina Park to downtown.
Yeah.
We understand this, also is looking to connect to downtown, and, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee
If they're
is also
serious about what they're staying here, of Wakefield to here, to Marina Park, they should take that. I think from an advisory for the waterfront position, we've got enough to get our funding for a Marina Park thing as an entity that has, things going out through the town to bring people here, that's fine and dandy, let somebody else do it. I think it's way outside the scope of what we should be getting involved with, and I'm afraid getting into it's gonna drain off resources for getting a master plan for the park. Just like every time we increased the scope with the ramp, we lost the job for decades. As soon as we focused down, we got it done. So I'm afraid the same thing will happen here. Oh, we're gonna do the whole town. Put the master plan for this subordinate to the master plan for the whole town. It's just the way it seems these things go. So if we can stay under the radar and keep getting things done at the Marina Park level, I think it would be more likely to happen based on previous experience.
Yeah, it cuts both ways, right? This could be a motivator to get money for the plan, or it becomes a detail that derails totally see that.
So I'm happy that they will do it. We can send a note saying, great job, go for it. But, we had that whole cruising grant thing that blew the whole job out of the water many years ago. And everybody wanted to get grandiose, and then you did nothing. love to see how they get down Matunic from West Kingston.
And let my e-bike on the path, but that's personal.
But I do think it's somebody else's higher order activity. But I'm happy to say we wish them well.
Can we wish them well and say, as it relates to Marina Park, can you coordinate a little bit with us as we try to get a master plan together, or are we gonna, is that
We
gonna throw?
would absolutely expect it because this is one of the places they plug into.
Yeah. All right, so then, okay, I'll make a motion to write a correspondence to the town council and this bike and pedestrian committee to say, we see I'm just gonna spitball the points. We see this proposed South Kingstown Access Path Initiative. To the extent that it could intersect or interface with the Marina Park and Marina Park future master plan, we'd hope to make sure, or something like, hope to coordinate and
You'd expect
Something
to
like that.
coordinate.
expect,
You'd have
there we
to.
go, expect to coordinate to connect Marina Park to this idea, such that it comes together.
Sounds
But
good.
that's kind of the higher order thing they're doing, they're just
Yeah.
expanding it to the town. But when they all come from all corners of the town and get here, now what? That should be ours. I mean, I couldn't imagine the scope of the whole town trying to feed into the shoreline.
Paddle boats.
Helicopters. That's gonna be tough. But,
Tough, ambitious.
oh, and tough. I could see now trying to get easements over,
Your farm.
property.
Yeah, so they're going right through your property.
Come on down, you pay my taxes, I'll give you a path.
Toll booth.
Be happy to have it. Okay, old business?
Well, we need a second and a
Oh,
vote.
that's right.
I'll second Nate's motion.
Mike can wordsmith that for a while.
I suppose you're directing me to also draft a memo?
Mhm.
He's quick, isn't he?
You're good at that.
Directing staff, direct staff to,
Use the right words.
ChatGPT.
Yep.
All right, and a vote?
All in favor, aye.
6-0. Okay, thank you.
Now on to the Marina Park Program Status Report.
Well, Gooseberry Dock Building was supposed to start this week on the dock and the stone. I suppose he has a couple more days to still be in this week. But we did meet on site at the end of last week to discuss it, and that was his plan to come down this week, or up, as it were. I think we have managed to cobble together the balance of the funding we need to do the stainless steel handrail on the walkway as it was bid. I think we talked about the fact that the bid went out, but it was $76,000, I think, which was above what the balance of that account had left in it. So I'm gonna make a recommendation, hopefully at the next town council meeting, to award that bid. So hopefully that'll wrap. So maybe by June. It's not exactly the best timing, but maybe by June we'll have some definitive things wrapped down there.
Good.
If you weren't aware, the New England Building and Bridge, they pulled the bond on their project in Wickford. They had been given the seawall, parking lot, whatever else was going on the North Kingstown public property down there, and they went MIA, and they had problems, and that was in the news recently.
Yeah, he filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, is that what happened?
Tuning seawall still stands.
Still stands, for now.
We got a ramp.
So, anyway, that's all I have on that, I think.
Okay. No update further from DEM?
Heard nothing from DEM or CMC on our management plan.
No news is good news?
No news is no news.
public right-of-way access, no changes there, right?
Well, so, the meeting on Monday, it was on the agenda to advertise for order of public notice, the amendment to the ordinance, as proposed by you folks. Thanks to Nate and Joe, who came and sat through a good portion of the meeting before, it was immediately moved to scheduling the public notice. We didn't actually discuss the proposal. So it's scheduled for May 27th meeting. That will be the public notice where it will all be presented, laid out. Any members of the public who wish to speak on it will be allowed to speak, and then the council can take that all under consideration as to move the ordinance, to be approved, or make recommendations for amendments or whatever they choose.
May 26th?
27th is the day after Memorial Day,
Got it.
right? Is that track?
I will unfortunately be here.
Okay. Right, that's the day after. It's a
Yes.
Tuesday, yeah. So, the only things that you folks might want to consider, because it may come up, is you never settled on a fee structure. I don't know if you want to make a recommendation to the council of a fee structure, if you want to discuss it at the meeting, what your ideas are, or if you want, I have a range of $75 to $235 is what I found locally.
It's too cheap. Very expensive.
I was
So that's entirely up
Because
to
they have to go through all this BS with the paperwork and the sticker and the photo and the registration. I was gonna go like $25. Just throwing it out there as a suggestion, thinking there also a mooring holder who's already paying 200 something bucks.
Wow, how many slots are there?
As many as
to
possible.
be determined.
As
That
many
means
as
we gotta
possible.
at least make the first year pay for the rack, you know?
You're gonna have overhead, so I did find out like the stickers, we have to buy a lot of 100 at a time. It's like $500 for a lot of 100. And then the materials is gonna be a few $1,000s for the materials to build the rack, plus staff time.
Amortize it.
Yeah, no, and again, you didn't propose it. Ultimately, the council sets the fee structure. I just don't know if you wanna be shaping that. They're not gonna have any basis to go off of unless they've done some
It's gonna
research or
trip
they're
them up.
familiar with it.
It's gonna trip them up.
And then the second thing that I thought now, because of the timing, is do you have a temporary solution or proposal until the rack, because the rack will not be built in time for summer. We're looking at implementing the ordinance on the 27th of May. So there will be no activity down there until this winter. So, and again, they may say something on their own based on what constituents have been telling them, but those are kind of two things that, as this starts to flush out and the calendar moves closer to summer, that,
Why don't you arrange it so that it goes ordinance goes active when the infrastructure is in place?
right, but what's happening on the public side of things is the highway department put signs up that said it's prohibited.
Mhm.
And so the phone calls and the emails are coming in saying, I have a mooring, I've always kept my boat there, what am I supposed to do this year? I'm not saying you have to do something, I'm just letting you know the public implications of, this is year one of not being able to do the activity that was there.
Right.
The ordinance prohibits it, so ultimately, what we're telling them is, no, you can't do it, and, sorry. But if you have an interim, if you wanted to, you could potentially propose, or again, the council may come up with that because people are in the meeting saying, I'm just trying to kind of get ahead of, so that you're not caught on your heels, or I'm not caught on your heels, like, if you don't have a suggestion, or you don't have anything to flush out, then that's fine, but these are all things that I think are reasonable to be kind of, okay, this is a good idea, how much are you gonna charge? Okay, this is a good idea, but what about this year, right?
Well, Why isn't it status quo until you have your infrastructure in place and activate your new ordinance?
Because the ordinance prohibits it, and the highway department erected signs down there
Well, take them
saying.
down, but they haven't been there for all these years, even though they have the ordinance.
But the town has now, acknowledged the behavior by cleaning it up and erecting signs, right?
Right, so they jumped.
I was of the mindset that, yes, we would continue along until the
Right.
infrastructure was in place.
Right,
There's multiple departments that are interacting with this topic.
mm-hmm,
So the cart kind of got in
Yeah.
front of the horse,
yes,
right? As far as a PR type of
Mhm.
thing.
but you can still take the signs down and let it go status quo.
You could, but all those people are technically in violation. We took
Fine.
15 boats out of there of people who were in violation.
Mm-hmm. But that was postseason, right?
It was, but that, so then that person says, well, you took my boat out of there, why didn't you take his boat out of there? Because it's July and not January?
You did it postseason, anything that was there, they knew to take them out, right? By the old ordinance?
There was no, the old ordinance said it was prohibited year round.
Right, but that, you never took any out during the season.
We did not take any out during the season,
Right.
correct? We attempted by putting a sign up to say,
Right.
take your boat out of here because it's prohibited.
Right,
And then the remaining ones,
during the off-season, though, you were implementing that takeaway, not during the usage season.
that's when the activity happened. I don't
Right.
know that it was implemented that way. We
Right.
tried to remove as few boats as possible.
Just because the cart got in front of the horse, we could always reverse the order. I mean, I don't think you should just lock it
Well, I don't think there
down.
was any order. It was just the town acknowledged the activity and then determined to enforce it.
Right, but I suppose much of that was predicated on the fact that this new system was coming into place.
No,
No, so they just, out of the clear blue sky, went down, cleaned the whole place up.
because it needed to be, yeah. I mean, they knew the ordinance was in the works, but
Right.
one didn't move the other. This has been done in the past, historically, over the years. Place needs to be managed. There's boats in the way. They go down, they haul them to the transfer station.
Well, my take would be you wouldn't cause a mess unnecessarily by doing it this way, and you just leave things alone until your infrastructure's in place and you've got your system ready to run.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that the conversation could be had, right? And so by saying what you're saying, that's in essence saying the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Everybody goes 45. We're gonna put the cruiser out there, and even though everybody's going 45, we're not gonna stop anybody and give them a ticket.
Prosecutorial discretion.
We're going right back to the way it was. And leave it alone until we can justify and have the system to handle it the way we want it.
And that's fine. That topic's is potentially gonna come up, so you may wanna have
Why don't we have it come up
a
before?
recommendation.
Why don't we have it come up before it comes up and have them take the signs down?
They were talking about it, I'm on this, public access, thing, right? They've been talking, some of us.
Yes, it made social media, yep, yeah.
Because, no, I don't think we should just keep everybody out of there because we haven't got the homework done. I don't think that's right either. I think that's worse than saying, take the signs down.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but also devil's advocate, the guy that lives at the end of Pond Street isn't allowed to keep his kayak in the right of way.
Okay,
But the rule's the same for both right of ways.
just do whatever you did last year, right? That's all, whatever it was, just do what you did last year. We
So-
created this mess by launching the thing into ordinance before having it all ready to go.
No. The ordinance said that this was prohibited. It was always prohibited.
Yeah, but it was.
It was not
you know,
enforced.
It's just like the judge says, you never enforce it, so it's not a law.
So the trouble is the sign. So the roads decided to put the sign up,
Mhm.
and because they have an order to clean the
Mhm.
thing. I agree with Mike. Practically speaking, that what you're describing would solve this problem. Now I'm trying to go in my mind. How do we make that practically happen?
You would have to permit it in some manner.
Or simply remove the sign.
Mhm.
how do we ask DPW?
Because simply removing the sign doesn't,
I'll take care of it.
simply removing the sign
Doesn't
doesn't,
change the
doesn't
ordinance.
change the fact that it's still
Yes.
prohibited.
Yeah,
Because we don't have signs anywhere else.
It was prohibited last year without signs.
I understand,
Didn't do anything last year.
I
either.
understand.
So-
But it wasn't in the bureaucratic realm last year.
So let's take it out of the
Let's take the
bureaucracy.
sign
Let's
down and
go
see
to
how
the
we
bureaucracy
meter
and say, let's not enforce, take the signs down and suspend that ordinance until the infrastructure's in place.
It's just gonna cause more confusion.
Mm.
If you take the signs down, everyone's gonna think, oh, they repealed the
Yeah,
ordinance, and you can just go and do what you were doing. And then you're gonna come back in and be like, no, 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 we've got this structure now.
Let's put a little thing over the sign that says, until this date, we're suspending this. Because I think you're gonna cause a real manure storm by you're gonna go down there and try and stop this summer?
Listen, if the ordinance doesn't get passed, this is a very easy thing that doesn't have to be thought about, because anytime a boat shows up down there, you just throw it in the back of the truck and you
Right.
haul it off to the trash, like, you know, or if you can't find the owner.
No,
So,
I don't disagree with that.
you know, this is a unique situation to these two right-of-ways within town.
And I think that, we could continue to do what we've been doing until we're ready to do what we wanna do.
You could, but to Sam's point,
Highways.
it's basically,
Sign up.
people have,
We-
the town is committed to enforcing this,
Damages done there.
and now you're saying, you know, not anymore.
We didn't advocate to put signage up, no.
No.
It wasn't this body.
To date, we've said, and how many years now have we gone as is until we were ready with this, and we're still not ready with this.
Yeah, until the ordinance passes.
And the racks are built.
Yeah.
Right.
And allocated.
Well, you know, we could, instantaneously turn on something down there, we'd go down and put a one-stage 2x4 rack.
In theory, could you do one season without the racks with the same system? Like, and they just pile them up?
Potentially, if we ordered some type of stickering, or they had
Like,
to
is it
register
the-
with the town, that's the system, just without the storage, right?
Yeah. I mean, just as a temporary,
See, the only thing is, there's gonna be some vetting of the people who are gonna use the rack, right?
Well, so the issue is, I think, we don't have the number of how many spaces the rack is gonna hold, right? Because we haven't settled on dimensions, because we don't have a site plan, because we don't have an ordinance. So why develop a site plan without the ordinance? Every site's gonna be different. So, for argument's sake, there's 22 moorings. At minimum, you would have 22 racks. Say you got 22 on the bottom, if there's enough room, you'd have 44 spaces. So you'd have another 22 that would be under your proposal, first come, first served lottery to whoever. It could be somebody from Westerly, or it could be somebody that doesn't have a mooring, you know? So that's the system, you just don't have the storage facility yet. Could they be stored on the ground? Sure. But would you cap it at a certain number? Would you say anybody that wants one? And then that in turn gives them first dibs when the lottery opens, because they registered first? You know? It's a pain in the neck. Because it would have been a lot easier if it went the way we were going.
Yes. I anticipated it to be like after the ordinance was passed.
Yes, it would
Then
be
the
like
season ends, the sign
July
goes up.
1 of next year, this would be in place, right?
Well, how many people around here have seen these signs?
A lot. There's been a
Everybody's
lot of communication to the
bringing it
town
back down.
council.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of communication to me, there's been a lot of communication to the highway department and public services, there's been a lot of communication to the manager's office.
Well, with all that communication going now, let's put a new sign and let that communicate through. I mean, it's gonna go one way or the other. You gotta be ready to run it, or you gotta get rid of it until it's ready.
I'm not saying you even need to suggest it, I'm just anticipating that based on where the conversations have come, this may be,
Well,
these
then-
two items may come up to say, well, how much do you wanna charge? And what do you wanna do this year?
If town council wanted to allow something like what has gone on before then, would they simply write it into the ordinance that they pass at the next meeting?
I think that would have to go to legal who's sitting at the table there, I mean, they can answer that question probably, but right now, the ordinance,
idea. Yeah.
you know, prohibits it. That's
Yeah.
what the ordinance says.
One idea is.
If they enact the ordinance, it's permitted now,
They might
right?
delay it another town council meeting.
They've suspended ordinances during construction periods, I think.
Yeah, but if they pass the ordinance, the activity is permitted.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's not capped.
You don't have a site plan, that's the issue. But now you can store, if they pass the ordinance, the boats can be stored there now, because the ordinance says so. You just don't have the infrastructure to determine, right? So do you wanna make a recommendation, or is it a free-for-all and everybody can put their boats there this year because it's allowed, and then next year? I don't know, I'm just,
That's
better to have these conversations in this meeting first than in that meeting where you have to think on the fly.
Yeah. I like the idea of suspending the no storage ordinance for one season.
Yeah, but there has to be the end of that, like, you have to cap it at something.
No, it'll end up like it was in previous years.
No, because what if people knew it wasn't allowed and they're like, you know, I'm not gonna do it because it's not allowed.
Then at the end of the summer, our new ordinance kicks in, they need to have a spot. It's one summer
No,
of
but
over storage.
Yeah, but what if there's like 300 kayaks down there, you know?
But also, you need an ordinance that says what you can do. Your ordinance says you can do certain things. Now you're proposing
On a record.
an interim ordinance which has not gone to the council for review, right? So you have something in place. It's just, how do you want to implement that without the wooden bars to hold the boats in place?
You suspend the
To
no-
his point, do you want to
suspend-
have a cap?
You suspend the no storage and rights of way ordinances for those two spots for one summer.
Where there's no cap,
Yeah, like it was.
and there's no permit, or there is a permit?
Nothing. Just suspend the storage, no
Your-
storage ordinances.
Your name has to be on your kayak.
But
or
if
something.
you do that, you're gonna have.
And you need something in writing.
But everyone's gonna say, why wouldn't you just suspend it forever
Oh,
and
I
just
agree
leave
with
it the
them.
way?
I agree with them.
Well, you know, it's funny, during COVID, there were a lot of things that were suspended. They didn't change ordinances, they, you know, like, the boat launch up in North Kingstown, they put a bag over the sign, you know, like, there were all these wacky things that went on. It's not a good situation. We spent a lot of time trying to contort ourselves into a knot to try to figure this thing out. I mean, cover up the sign, maybe it'll die down and we'll get it big next, you know, we'll get it right next year. Like, I don't know, like, I think it'd be confusing changing the ordinance and all, I think it'd just be confusing.
I mean, you have to remember why this happened. Like, there were complaints about people saying that access to the water was being blocked by kayaks and boats in the way. Like, there was a reason why this happened. It wasn't like suddenly it was like, oh, let's mess with the ordinance. It was, people were bringing that up and saying.
Well, and we'll probably have a lighter
DPW.
summer this
Yeah,
summer
but
with
not
the
even just
sign up.
DPW, but
And
like-
you might not have that, you know, you might not have that problem as much because the sign will be up. Maybe certain people will say, I guess I can't do this.
The other option is you open the permitting process and give the sticker.
Yeah.
You either have a number or you don't have a number, and then they just lay them in a designated area. You put like a roped off area with like metal stakes and say all boats must be stored in this area with a sticker facing out, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, to facilitate,
Right.
not weed.
So then you have the person, you know the owner, you know, and there's your system is in place, you just don't have the actual slots that they're sitting in. I think at one point you guys even discussed just letting them be on the ground, right? So,
Somewhere along the lines.
because the stickers can probably be ordered in short order, so it would just be, you need to register your boat with the town for X amount of dollars. This year the racks aren't built, you need to keep it in this location, need to be removed by this date, which is in the ordinance. So you have the control and the organization that you're looking for, right? Without having the wooden racks. And also, there's not really any hoops or explanation needed to be made to the council. It's, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna allow people to permit their boats to be there this year, and we'll build the racks in the off-season to store them.
Can the town council make an edit to that ordinance at the next meeting, at the hearing, or is it just like a yes, no? And the reason I ask
I
is.
don't know the
somewhere-
answer to that.
Somewhere along the lines, no ground storage was added as an item in that ordinance.
Yeah, but this is
I
all
definitely
temporary.
agree.
This isn't, I think you're thinking like
But
too into it.
So I'm thinking about how to tell the town council how to do this.
Mhm.
Like, hey, for this year,
We're gonna run the system, we just don't have the racks yet.
yeah,
Like, there's nothing.
Because in a perfect world, I guess on May 27th, you get the green light. By next week, if you had a contractor in place, you could build the racks. It's just,
Yeah.
staff's not gonna have the time to do
And
that.
we could do,
And you're not gonna probably be able to get a contractor,
Mhm.
you know, we're gonna have to get approval from CRMC. It's just, the timeline is not quick enough, but
And
realistically, you
want
could
to
do
be
it.
right and succinct
Right.
from the word go.
Right.
And you could
So
do,
rushed
like,
and-
you could do a conservative, like, call it, 35 or 40, and hope that we get more than that with the racks, not less.
You also potentially get a window into the success of the racks by just having a uncapped permit this year, right?
Oh,
And you
yeah.
see the demand,
Yeah.
right? If you build 35 racks and only 25 people want a rack, you know, or if you have room for 50 and 100 people want it, right? It kind of almost gives you a little data point.
Yeah.
I mean, we know there were 75 boats down there. Were they being used every day? Were they being used at all? You know, we know we took 15 out of there. To my knowledge, only one person's come looking for it, one so far. So, 14 of them are orphans still. You know, granted, summer people haven't arrived yet, right? So there may be
racks are
some more
not
people.
cheap. I don't understand how people just like throw them away.
Well, I mean, Job Lot was selling.
But there's like some old towns though. There's some decent boats. Yeah, there's a couple
Like
few old towns.
disposable income.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
So
Um,
how do we, here's an idea, we asked, this is good, I think I like what you're saying, like, communicate to the town council, we'd like to run the permit system this year. We won't have the rack, so it's gonna have to be ground storage.
I
It's gonna have to be a.
think you run it as it's proposed. If they concur and they pass it, you run it as proposed. But oh, by the way, the racks will not be constructed.
Installed next winter, given the timing here,
Right. Right.
and let them figure out how to do that legally with the ordinance and.
You may not have to, other than your point to the ground storage, but, the ordinance, if you just run it how your ordinance is, you have to register with the town, we have to get a sticker, you have to fix the sticker on the boat, you know, you're in the mooring system.
And that would happen June 1, 3 days after the meeting? Or how would you start that permit system?
I've already had people inquire about registering for it, so,
How many? Out of curiosity.
3 people, I actually had someone register in the mooring system for a kayak storage spot, but for, like, on the wait list. But, I think 3 so far have said, how do I get on the wait list?
They turn the lights on.
Yeah, there's a new custodian, but he knows we're here because Terry told him. Anyway,
Yeah, I think that sounds like a plausible solution.
And how many permits? I don't have a sense of how much.
My
back
my
space-
fear is, well, I kind of like the idea of, like, let's just see what happens for popularity's
With the
sake.
downside of a year goes by and then if you.
Yeah, these would have like a clause like non-renewable. Like, it
maybe
doesn't-
this, when you come up with the number, maybe an issuance of permit in 2025 authorizes you for the lottery in 2026 for a rack.
Yeah, something like that.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Cause
You would have to describe that, because if you issue 100 permits,
yeah.
and you can't fit 100 kayaks in the
That's why
rack,
I go less.
then how do you say now, well, you had it last year, but you can't have it this year because we built racks?
But this would also show, like, so let's say we do,
30.
no cap, and it's 100 people, like, that gives us data to use in the future for pushing this for other places, you know, based on popularity. Because if we start this out with a cap, let's say we started out, we built the racks, we could only fit 30, and it's full every year. We don't really truly know, I mean, other than the waiting list, but like how many people do want that type of thing, you know? And this would tell us that.
the inverse of all of this conversation is it's prohibited, and it's prohibited through this year, and when the system is implemented, when the racks are built, we'll implement the system to allow you to come back. Right? That's the other, because that's what the ordinance says right now, so the ordinance could be effective May of next year, and then this year it is what it is. You gotta transport your boat to the location. I'm not saying that's ideal, but I'm just saying that's another clean way of saying, you know, it is what it is. We're enforcing the regulation, but next year we're gonna make it so some of you can come back.
I'll make a motion. We can edit this, but here's an idea. Communicate to town council, we suggest a fee of $25, we can pick a different number. To keep it, you know, something but not prohibitive, especially with people already laying on mooring fees and whatnot. We'd like to pass this ordinance with the acknowledgement that this year the racks won't be built, so we'd like to run the permit system. Allowing ground storage or something like that for this year, so we can build the racks next year. That's it. Suggest that's how we do this, given that it's a change it's a practical change for people that use the place there. Is it feasible to you to run a permit thing?
I mean, they would have to register with this, you know, with the system. We'd have to order the stickers and issue the stickers. I mean, it's possible.
How, like, what's the technology side behind it with the system? Like, is that a lot of work?
I think it's probably I think other communities already utilize the mooring software for racks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just a matter of them, for lack of a better description, flipping a switch.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they might have some build out. I will note that our current fee structure on the mooring software, when you consider the fee, is $6 per permit, is what the links log gets. So each permit is $6, whether it's a renewal, a wait list, whatever, new assignment. So we charge a $15 application fee on top of the per foot rate, because that fee is subject to increase.
They gotta provide, you know, email, cell
The picture of their boat,
picture.
yeah. And then we would give them a sticker, which then they have to put on the boat.
Yeah.
And those stickers, like I said, it's 100 and we would have to change them every year, right? Because we gotta give them a new annually. It's gotta be a different color or date or something. So.
Sounds like a plan. Whatever it is.
Sounds like a plan, whatever the plan is.
And that's a vague note right there. We didn't say we have 30 spots. We just said we run the permit system.
Mhm. As space allows,
As space allows.
I mean, we're not really communicating this because it's, I mean, I guess you could, but I think you've communicated already. This is just gonna be batted around in real time,
Mhm.
right?
We can send them a letter from this committee, right?
You could, I guess, I mean,
That was
an amendment to your memo that already went.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Not amendment.
In light of the time of year and public feedback, we're recommending
Exactly.
such and such. There's time, because May 27th, there's time to get that on the agenda.
The easiest thing in my mind would be just to allow it uncapped this year. So we suggest that, saying.
Subject to receiving a permit from the town,
Or are you saying free for all?
That would be my preference.
free for all.
Essentially take the sign down free for all until basically suspend the no storage ordinance on those two roads until we have the rack.
you're gonna have such an uproar though when it comes time to implement the new ordinance, cause they're gonna be like, well, you just suspended it for the last season, why can't you just suspend the entire ordinance, you know?
So you might as well run the system.
Yeah, I support your
Yeah.
original motion of
Yeah.
run the system without the racks and, you know, see what I think it's a good trial run. You
Yeah.
know, rather than investing in the racks, like, see what happens at least. You know, you might get 60, you know, applicants and you know, like, all right, you gotta really try to fit that many. You're not gonna be able to obviously get racks for 60, but that's what the demand is, and you're gonna
You might
try
get 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You might have gotten a bunch of people that say, you know what, it's not worth the aggravation.
well, and, you know, now it's regulated. Before it was easy, just throw it down there. Like
Right.
someone from, like Exeter.
Yeah.
Who might not read the Times or.
Right,
wouldn't
right.
even- yeah, But I'm saying, they don't know what's going on.
Right.
They may see the sign and say, all right, we're out of here,
Mhm.
which is okay.
Yeah, yeah, because you folks didn't say it was residents only.
You can't go in there and start proposing or suggesting changes to an ordinance that they're ready to adopt, because it's just gonna kick it back.
Yeah.
So either leave it alone and put it on hold, which is a valid approach, or you just say, here's our lovely ordinance and we're gonna take care of business. Oops, 6 months later, the rack's on here, well, we're taking care of business.
Which is run the system without the
Right.
racks. Yeah.
So, because implementation is one thing, the ordinance is another thing.
Yeah.
And in the times of, well, you mentioned pandemic, you know, things change. You know, in this case, okay, what do they call that, our supply chain is a little weak, and so we're gonna do it this way. And we don't have to advertise that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Except
that's.
in the email
And
to
let the people
and
who
say,
really
hey,
care are gonna know about it, and that's fine.
Yeah. So I think an implementation discussion, I think would be inappropriate at the time of the ordinance, because you don't want an implementation built into the ordinance, because that means it's gonna have to change later. Once the two models, you know, no rack.
So should we
Change.
communicate to the town council that, because they're gonna get this question, right? What's gonna happen this summer? Right?
And we're gonna implement.
So, all
What
right,
you pass is gonna get implemented.
so should we don't deal with this now, let that all happen at town council and have someone say, hey, we'll implement this?
You have, the implementation plan is just to build racks, put
Yeah.
them in, put stickers, do all that fun stuff as infrastructure.
Yeah.
The ordinance already does that.
Yeah.
So ordinance passes, you can run with it now.
Right.
I
The
know.
wrinkle is you don't have the slots to put them in.
Yeah, and someone added no
But
ground
you don't even
storage
have to say
storage.
that.
No, I'm saying that's the wrinkle to implementing
Yeah, but
what's been
he's the one
discussed.
that enforces
I
that, so
get
it's
that.
not, who cares?
So
Okay.
let's just
I like
leave
that.
the ordinance alone. Otherwise, you might as well just tear it up now, go away and come back some other day.
It's not gonna pass.
Not
I'm just kidding,
pass.
I'm kidding.
I think that, from what I've heard, it's from people that live in the neighborhood, they're happy about it. They
I'm
want
sure,
it.
yeah.
So-
Because the alternative is your
Chaos.
original ordinance.
But- And also the people who live in the immediate area are happy to see some sort of organization to what was going on down there.
So we leave the ordinance alone as written, and
And
we
run
charge
the
them
permit system.
$25. And Mike works on the ethereal
And
infrastructure.
And they're gonna take the signs down.
Before we settle on that.
They will when the ordinance
That's
passes.
what I'm
Thank
saying. Yeah.
Right.
So the signs come down and say you must be permitted
Yeah.
to store a boat
Yeah.
here, basically.
Yeah, swapped. So.
Right.
Okay? Can
So
we-
that removes your sign
Can we
too.
just do that?
Yes.
Mike, you said you looked at other towns, like, I know going way back when we started looking at this, you were researching other towns. What do other towns charge for storage?
So it seemed like most of the towns were 75 to 100 in Rhode Island. Like out in Massachusetts, I think I saw like somewhere like in the 235. I think one was 235. There was a non-resident of like 3 something. But I think by and large, like, I mean, really we looked at Newport, Bristol, Warren. I think Newport might have had a lower cost one, but there were no racks. It was just kind of like you throw your boat at the end of the street.
Yep.
The driftaway ones, I think. I don't think they have, I'd have to go back and double check that, but I don't think they had racks. And those might have been 25 or 50, but I think if I remember right, like East Greenwich was 75, I think Bristol was like 79 or something like that, and Warren was in that same 75 to 100 range, I think.
I think 25 is a little low.
I think it's low too.
Just so like, you want the thing to at least pay for itself, like the mowing and building it and maintenance of it.
I mean,
No, but they're gonna
Well,
like.
that's one of the arguments for doing
that
it,
was
is
the
this is they
problem.
want to be able to maintain it.
Right.
yeah, and I think it should be like the $50 range, so, or at least.
I think 50 is, I mean, not that I have any say whatsoever, but.
I mean, ultimately, they'll adopt a fee schedule is how I'm leaving it, because every year, so you could say $50 this year, and next year it could be petitioned to go lower, higher, they could just
But
adjust
it's hard
it.
to go higher once you say, we're gonna do 30, and then say next year it's gonna be.
Right, and you might propose 50, and they say, well, we think 25 is reasonable.
Yeah.
Or they may say 500 is reasonable, right? But I think that was one incomplete
Yeah.
component to your proposal was, what do you, because they're relying on you to advise them. So I think a starting point of saying, we think $50 is reasonable, and then they can run with it from there. Or whatever you suggest, I'm just, in this
Do
instance, you said
25
50.
and let them raise it. Because I'm sure they're gonna do, 25 is nothing.
Well, I don't know, because they tried raising the parking tickets from whatever, $15 or whatever nominal fee they were, and they said no.
I like that.
Well,
They-
they're hearing stuff from people
Yeah,
right now.
sure.
So, I mean, I think if it comes from us, $50, call it good, and let them wrangle with it.
Okay, so I think probably when the time comes for the hearing, I'll give like the brief synopsis of what's going on based on the memo, why, how we got here. And then I think it's important for somebody from this, or multiple of you, to have FaceTime with them. This is pride in authorship, and also you're advising them. So, then those conversations can be had. I'm happy to step in whenever, but I think it's important, even if it's 5 seconds, that you guys say, this is why we came up with this,
I will unfortunately be there.
I can almost guarantee that they'll talk about it this time.
Do we need to do anything to tell them about the fee thing, or is that something you could do at the meeting, or?
Yeah, I think we can just say
Okay.
the fee, we recommend that the fee would be set in the council's annual fee schedule, and the recommended fee is X, whatever.
37.50.
And can we tell them that we're planning to run the permit system this year? And just
I don't think you need to tell them that.
Well,
I think
The
you,
first question I would have down there is, what's gonna happen this year? And they're gonna turn and go, what's gonna happen this year?
Read the ordinance.
this is what's gonna happen this year, and we
Okay,
will
so
build
the
racks as we're
There
able
it is.
to.
The answer is, we are going to run this permit system this year.
I mean, conceivably, maybe they can build the racks in August. I don't think
Well,
that's
right,
realistic,
We
but,
just have to have an answer, because that's, they're just gonna.
We're
it's
gonna use
same
the
thing with
ordinance.
yeah.
yeah.
That's all. There it is. We're gonna use it.
So yes, we're running the system.
We're not doing implementation planning with them.
I know, but I'm thinking about it from a voter's perspective now.
Don't think about the town council.
No, I know what you're saying. You're saying like the guy that's in the audience is gonna go up to speak and say, there's no racks there now. What am I doing this
Summer.
year? You can apply to the town
This year.
to get a permit to keep your boat in that
If he
location.
says that, when the time comes, there'll be racks. Just to get, because you're gonna complicate it with all this stuff. They won't know whether to put a horseback, or, well, this rack is over here, and, well, what kind of screws are you
No,
using?
no, as long as we
Right.
just say we're running the system this year. This is
Right.
we're not
Subject to
doing it.
CRMC approval.
See, now you got something else to throw in there. We're doing it by that.
We're running the system this
Right.
year.
If the system includes CRMC and they blow it out of the water, this year they blow it out of the
So-
water.
And then, so when time comes, which is shortly after that meeting, we'll have to announce here's the system you sign up for.
Well, you already have, it's in the ordinance.
Yeah, but it'll be like, it's open on.
How do you get
X,
it?
Y,
How do you
day.
register? Right.
And then at some of that communication, it's gonna be, here's your permit, and it's on the ground this year.
And that's totally inappropriate.
They don't have to
get
know
into
that. I'm just-
detail.
No, that's an administrative thing.
What we're-
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
You can get, whether it's through me or the clerk's office, or whatever, here's your permit, the racks are being built,
You know,
Yeah.
one summary statement would be beautiful. We're using the existing mooring system to conduct business
Yeah.
for this.
Which
For
you
town
said
council.
that, which that's in the memo and that's in your
So-
ordinance.
So
I'm
you
thinking
can
through
say it
what we're
live
gonna
when
do.
the question comes up.
Yeah.
It'll dismiss a lot of the aura. But don't let it go down to the gnat's ass detail.
Sure. I'm not thinking about this in front of town council, now I'm thinking it passes. The next day is like when you would wanna almost start it.
Everybody calls and says, how do I get my name on the list?
My first question, when's the list, how do I get on it, you know? And we'll have
But
to have
that's
some answer. to that.
implementation, and it really isn't appropriate in this venue. It's about the.
As a public citizen, that's the first thing I'm gonna ask at that meeting.
Which may be asked in that
I
meeting.
will ask that meeting.
It may be asked, but it doesn't necessarily be answered. It's in the ordinance.
Right, but
It's not
to Nate's
an
point, there may be a dozen people who get up to speak during the public hearing and say, how's it gonna work this year?
Yeah.
I live there, there's no racks there.
Exactly what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
And the ordinance says they're going to be racks.
Mhm.
But we're gonna run, and the answer to this question when they ask is, we're gonna run the system as the ordinance says.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then we have to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or if your MC doesn't come through with a assent, then we don't do it until it comes through.
Or the town council feels differently about your proposal. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but I'm just saying.
They can make their comments, they can direct changes, sure. But it has to be subjected to outside forces.
Right, or there could be a groundswell of opposition to it
Great, then the town
at the
council
meeting,
can
right,
decide that.
right, that's what I'm saying, so.
That's not up to us.
There's a lot of what ifs, but we know these two what ifs would come
Yeah,
up.
we just have to be ready to run the system.
Mhm.
So you've got your answers, $50 and the,
Yeah, and yes, and we're doing it.
the ordinance is as written.
If it passes, we'll do the system. If it doesn't pass, it's not allowed.
And if there's implementation questions that come up, quick,
Yeah.
maybe even refer to a paragraph or a sentence in the ordinance.
You know, and there can be an explanation when you hand out what's gonna happen. And
Yes.
everyone's gonna be clear, and, you know, next year, it's gonna be, here's your permit, and that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You don't want everyone calling you and going nuts.
Well, this year we're doing the permits.
No, but I'm saying next year, people are gonna ask the questions when they get the permit, this year.
Have to do it next year.
There can be a quick synopsis. This is
Right,
what's
there'll
gonna
be a
happen.
renewal, we're gonna run it just like the mooring, so we're gonna go
Yeah.
out in
But
March.
you can explain to them at that point when
Right.
they pick it up.
Yep, yeah, I could even make like a one-page sheet, here's
Yeah.
your sticker and here's how it works.
Some
And
information.
this is what's
Yeah.
gonna happen
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As soon as you say it's gonna run same system as the mooring system, that should settle a lot of questions, because a lot of people already use that.
How do I get on the list is my next question. And the answer will be, there'll be an announcement and you email them or something.
well, you'll do just like you would register for, to get on the wait list for a mooring.
Right.
And it opens on a certain day, because this is the first one.
Right, right, and then going forward, you'll just get a renewal, if you're on, you can join the wait list whenever,
Yeah.
and then you'll get a renewal every year.
As the ordinance.
And if you have one already, you'll get a renewal to keep your spot.
Okay, we ready to move on?
Now that you've talked through that. Well, better that you talk through it here than there.
That
Yeah,
horse
that's
is-
one, that's good.
That horse has been beat to death. Okay, where are we?
D.
Got so dazzled by all this.
I feel like we did D with C.
Well, the D is, you guys are looking at the next parts of the ordinance that you want to update. And so you had tossed around looking at transient moorings,
Yeah, so-
the dinghy dock on the backside of the dock at the ramp.
Yeah, yeah.
There might have been a couple other, I'm trying to remember. But you guys were all gonna look at that and come back.
Yeah, where did that go last meeting?
I've started to pull together information on transient moorings, and I started to draft something to send over to you, but I didn't get it over in time. But I've looked at Newport, New Shoreham, and basically just how they manage and regulate their transient moorings. Pretty straightforward, nothing super complex. Block Island is by the night, and Newport by the foot. First come, first serve. And I don't even think that either one of them do like an online application. Like you basically just have to hail the harbor master when you come in, and it's first come, first serve. That's it. So, but I'll put that into writing, and then it can be discussed as we look at updating those
And so Sarah couldn't make it tonight, but she did, obviously have a good resource there. She's
Yeah.
managed that for Newport. But she said she could put something together as well. Like I said, in all likelihood, if she put something together for you guys, you'd wanna wait to talk to her.
Yep.
So, she'll
Yeah,
probably come.
I was just flagging that. I started to dig into it. But.
Yeah. So she'll bring some information, it sounds like, too.
Dave? Survey work, Mike.
I did give you, just so that you see that however slowly we are marching forward on that. It actually worked that we're in a reval year because the tax assessor's office actually had to do some legwork on some of these. So I provided that to you. There's no action required on your part other than if you know, after you look online at the GIS thing, if you wanna look at the GIS at some of these and be familiar with them, but we'll keep marching forward on that and hopefully get that list buttoned down and then we can issue the bid.
And the plan is the road and the town-owned parcel, right?
Right, my whole thought was that I wanna go at this once.
Yeah.
So I don't want, we think we know all of them, but there was a few that were a little ambiguous. Let's get as definitive as we can, so we do this one time, so that someone will come in and say, well, you didn't do this one, or that one's not right, you know. So I think we're circling around that, hopefully shortly.
Dave? Parking lot expansion?
Yeah, so it seems, I think we already talked about this in previous meetings, that we're going to move forward with that parking lot expansion. The issue is just staff time. I did meet, so we did meet with a contractor just to see if we could just pay someone to come in and do it. We don't have the funding to be able to do the whole shot with a contractor. I did meet with Rich Bourbonite and Rex Eberly this week down there to see what we can do in the interim. 210 Oyster Bar opened today, or reopened today. So I said at minimum, I'd like to try and have something set up to be able to start to.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Are you guys good to lock up?
Yeah, I'll lock and set the alarm. Thank you. Yeah, we're all set. If you want to just lock the front doors, that's fine. I'll lock it up.
We mean the front doors.
You can just, like, do your normal thing, just don't set the alarm.
I got you.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Have a good night. So just to kind of set expectations. So I think at minimum, we're gonna be able to take down the post and rail, open up the grass going back to towards the highway. And we did some experimenting with painting lines. I think we can paint the lines on the stone, even if we don't get the barricades in. Parks does have the ability to set the pilings when they have the time. So we're looking, maybe if we purchase the pilings and the park staff does that, to do that kind of, that barricade across that row. But we did lay it out, and we even looked to see if we could have one more row of just car parking before we did the boat trailer parking. We don't have enough of a swing. So we'll do that one row that we discussed, the laneway, the barrier, and then the parking stalls for the trucks and trailers. So hopefully we'll have something for the start of the season. It may not be complete, but we'll be moving that way at least.
New business A? The Parktown Farm Master Plan.
Yeah, so I thought, in light of the other conversation that you had, we've talked broadly about it in meetings, but to have an agenda item, and then it can kind of park under the old business, just so that, you know, the public, the council, if they're so interested, they see that that's a topic of conversation, and that you guys are kind of moving that along. You know, it's not just an idea that's discussed in the meeting, but it's actually a point that is, you know, actively being looked at. And if you have more to discuss, certainly.
Did they do a master plan for Old
They did. Yeah. That's how they came up with what they're doing now.
Yeah.
So was the Marina Park Town Farm one under development now? Have they started working on it at all, or is it just?
No,
an
so
idea?
that's an
It's in the-
idea that's been brought by this body.
Right.
So the town parks would love to do a master plan.
So I didn't know if they had.
Yeah,
after
so,
that.
so the town parks staff has asked over the years for a comprehensive town-wide parks master plan. That has not been supported financially. So, we have, revenue coming in specific to Marina Park, so maybe we stand a better chance, at getting that. We got it into the CIP, though it's not funded yet. So certainly broader conversations help to, advance that. And then Town Farm, Marina Park was once Town Farm, until they put the highway, and then they just changed the name of the other half of Town Farm, but it's all, that property is all one, and it's under your folks' purview.
Okay, harbor master report.
We talked about the handrail, the dock, the parking lot. We installed the CD3 boat cleaning station is what I'm calling it, because people think that it's taking water out of the pond to clean your boat. So that was installed by the highway department. I'm waiting on D.
Filling the pond up.
Yes, yes. No, we're starting to dry. Then there will be no hydrilla
Right.
because there'll be no water.
Some of the comments on the town, on social media about that thing.
So it's there, it's operation, all indications are it's operational. We have a software subscription where it reports back to me. We're waiting on DEM they wanna have a press release, possibly photo op, whatever, it's their property. We've done our part to the extent that we can, other than the other grant we received to do the public signage and that kind of stuff. So that's there, it's implemented. We just awarded the bid for the next 2 years of herbicide treatment on Indian Lake for hydrilla. It's like a $200 and some odd thousand contract to the pond and lake connection. So they'll continue, they had it last year for the state, so they'll continue that work. We started doing we had the opening meeting on the Indian Lake management plan for that grant that we funded, and also I found out that the DEM is planning to do a broader Saugatucket River watershed plan, which is great because that's I think the only watershed that's not covered in town by a plan that opens up federal funds through EPA and stuff like that. So that's good. And PB1, I think we talked about the fact that the fuel tank failed again on that boat. We do have a portable fuel tank on the deck. It's operational, it's in the water.
How big?
18 gallons.
What's your range of that, Bobby?
To be determined.
Head to the pond and back.
Yeah, to be determined. And PB2's been operational on the trailer. And that's all I have.
Like any concern, I'm sure you've been keeping up with, pulling some of the Coast Guard nav buoys, or talking the ones that they wanna just do away with and not maintain anymore?
Yeah, so I did see that. We've, annually, it seems for a lot of years, I had to fight them on Point Judith Pond. I haven't heard anything.
So I looked
new.
up, you can see which ones they wanna pull.
Yes.
And there were none in the pond.
Right.
The only one was the red can off the center wall. Was
Yeah.
That was, and then I think they wanted to pull the Hooter too, but.
Yeah, so, which is, that's to my point, I haven't heard anything. I don't think it's ever gonna go away, because they would love to not have to maintain those anymore. And then also, the Army Corps, I'm sure, would love that, because while they're not dredging, they still do the surveys every so many years and issue a report. So yeah, we'll keep staying tuned into that and hope that we've won that battle, but I guess time will tell. I think it helped when the fishing boat went up on the rocks after they pulled the buoys. And they were there at 7:30 at night, putting the buoys back in, and they said that was regularly scheduled. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, stay tuned.
Okay, adjournment. Next meeting's the 5th of June.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There you go, assuming 6-0.
You got it.